Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Thank you for pulling your chair up to the cool kids table, where every episode we interview really cool people who are carving their own path in the world. We interview entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, business leaders, and people who just have a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by the Potential Mastermind Project. And that is my group coaching program that grew out of this podcast. It's so interesting because at the beginning of the year, we're getting new people to sign up. We have about 4 new members who've joined. And every week we have a little call. It helps people who are involved realize they don't have to do this alone. Whether you work for a company and you just want to be more entrepreneurial in that job, you just want to find more success, or maybe you have a side hustle, or maybe you're taking the leap and starting your own thing, you've got potential. But you got to realize that potential doesn't equal results. And therefore, if you want results, you can't do it alone. You got to have some people who will give you different perspectives, help you get ideas, and then kick you in the butt a little bit and get you to take action. And that's what we do in the Potential Mastermind Project. You can find out all the information you want at potentialmastermind.com. And as one person told me the other day, that's the most affordable thing that they'd seen in the world of any type of coaching program. And it's because I want to be here and make this thing work for all of us and create a little community. So check it out today. Now, today's guest is a consultant, a coach. She does a whole bunch of things, but what she really does is she helps entrepreneurs tell their story. And you know, storytelling is such a hot topic. When I look around in my world, and I speak at about 50 plus conferences a year, I see all the time that if not on the main stage, one of the breakouts is about storytelling. Being a professional speaker, I'll tell you, it's all about the stories. People say all the time, how can you build a career as a speaker? And I say, are you a great storyteller? And they say, no, I'm a data person. Well, you might put the audience, you could have great data, but if you put them to sleep, no one's going to want you to come back. But if you can tell them a story, if you can captivate them, if you can get them to lean in, pow, great things happen. And that's what Dawn Gluskin does. Hey, Dawn, welcome to Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do.
Yes. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So
I always wanted to be at the cool kids table.
That's right. Yeah, me too. And in high school, it was so funny at my 30-year reunion, like one of the most popular girls in school, we were all sitting around talking, and she goes, wasn't it great that at our school we didn't have like cliques? And all of us, when she walked away, we looked at each other like she was the queen of the cliques. And what I learned is that when you're in a clique, you don't know you're in a clique. Everybody else realizes that the cool kids never thought there was a cool kids table. So the rest of us knew it, though. So, Dawn, I don't really like bios, so I don't read these things that PR people send me in advance. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, like you said, I do storytelling. I think everybody has a story and that it needs to be shared with the world, especially entrepreneurs. You know, if you want to stand out, especially online, you got to give your authenticity. You got to be a little bit vulnerable, let people see you. So really the work I do is help people first connect with who they really are, their passion, their truth, and then bring that alive, be able to express that, whether it's on a stage, on their website, in their marketing materials. So people can feel them, stories go really straight to the heart, where data kind of goes in one ear and out the other, but stories are what people remember us by.
So you bring up the fact that you help people find out who they really are. I find when I'm coaching people, or just even my friends or other business people I know, why is it so hard for people to know who they are and to be able to verbalize that?
Yeah, well, I think we all kind of know at some level, we do know, but we go through our whole life sort of wearing these masks. Like we have to show up in the world a certain way, especially in the business world. There's all these rules that put into place. Oh, I can't say that. I got to wear this. I can't do that. So we're like, spend so much time worrying or wondering, how should I show up? What should I say on my website? Are people going to like me? Are they going to judge me? That we forget who we are. And it's more like a reminder. We just need to be reminded and also told that it's okay to be who you really are and break the rules and do your own thing. That's what being an entrepreneur is about anyway.
So Dawn, I assume when you went to college, you didn't major in storytelling. I don't think being a storytelling coach was one of the things I got to pick through at San Diego State when I was looking for a major. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, and it should be a major now if it's not. But no, so I always wanted to be a writer when I grew up, and then the world convinced me, you'll never make any money doing that.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Which surprisingly isn't true. You can make money at just about anything that you want to do.
Yes. Yeah. But, living someone else's dream that we all kind of do that where, parents or friends or teachers are like, you can't do that. You're not going to make money, or that's a crazy job. Or
let me interject here.
So.
In 8th grade, I was in advanced English, and I told my teacher I wanted to be a writer. And my teacher told me, you better come up with a new idea because your grammar and your spelling aren't good enough. You don't even belong in advanced English with your grammar and your spelling, and you'll never be a writer. And now I have 12 books, and I write articles all the time. And I wish I could find that 8th grade English teacher. I wish I could find Mrs. Nicolaitis and just remind her that was a horrible thing to tell an 8th grader. It took me till I was like 40 years old to get over it.
Oh, I hope she's listening now and you can dedicate your books to her. But so along that, so I ended up majoring in business instead of writing. And I accidentally got into some random industry selling electronic components. I did that for like 15 years. That was the first business.
That's just like writing, selling electronic components, being a writer. I see the connection.
Right. Yeah. But, so I was making good money at it and, that whole thing. And I kept telling myself, I eventually went and started my own company and we were very successful. And I was like, I'm just going to do this for like 1 year and then I'm going to sell the company and then I'm going to do what I really want. And then 7 years later, that business that I grew from 0 to 3 million, we grew back to 0 again because the universe was listening to me saying, I don't really want to do this. I want to do what I love. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. And that's what led me to doing what I love now, storytelling and writing and helping others.
So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing the coaching and the consulting and the storytelling?
Yeah. So this has been my full-time gig for the past 2 years.
Awesome.
And then I was doing some stuff part-time for probably the last 7 or 8.
Sure. So what do you love about the life now that you've been doing this full-time for 2 years? What do you love about the life of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, it's, I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years now, but there's a big difference before when I was doing the work that I didn't love. And it was mostly just, for the money. And I had all these employees and all this responsibility. And that was very stressful versus now where I'm doing what I love. I'm not doing 3 million in revenue, but that's okay because I get to do what I love. I get to travel. I get to, go and meet the most incredible entrepreneurs and speak on stages. And it's just, it's so much better when you're like in alignment with what your heart really wants to do.
So what advice do you have for people who feel that maybe they've put their ladder against the wrong wall and they want to go be in alignment with who they are and their true desire?
Yeah. It's be honest about it and then put a plan into place. So not everyone can necessarily quit their job today or close down their business today and then tomorrow start afresh. That might not be practical for everyone, but put a plan into place and actually a real plan. Don't just say, well, someday, right? Because someday never comes. So tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, whatever it is, and then slowly transition. And what does that look like? Are you working at night or working on the weekends and building your side hustle until it becomes your main thing? And you just got to go for it.
Well, you mentioned when I asked you that you had done this, for 2 years full time, but really 5 years before that on the side.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about creating a side hustle when you have a job or you have, in your case, another business. How do you go about doing that? How do you find the time to do it? How do you create that plan?
Yeah, well, we all have the same number of hours in the day. So, that's one thing I always say when people don't have the time. So really what it comes down to is looking at what are you spending your time doing? So an easy thing that most people can kind of give up or do less of is watching TV. I know a lot of people like to just veg out at night and watch TV. So instead of vegging out, you could spend those couple hours a night working on what you really want to be doing. And a couple hours a night, that adds up pretty fast. But you usually have to make some sacrifices. You have to give something up, but is it worth it, to be happy? Yes, it is.
So as you make that transition from sort of side hustle to full-time venture, what's the difference?
What's the difference? Well, a side hustle is kind of, it's almost like hobby territory. You might be making some money, but it's mostly just for fun and you might be making a little bit of money, but when it's your full-time thing, that's it. Like there's no back door. There's no like safety net. It's going all in and saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm committed to this. I'm letting go of the safety net. And then you have no choice but to make it work. And there's something like very inspiring about that makes it work.
So I talk a lot about this whole concept of potential. So you knew, because you had success in the other businesses that you do, and you were successful in life, you knew that you had potential. But what was the gap between potential for starting your own business as a storytelling coach and consultant? What was the gap between your potential and the results?
The gap between the potential and the results, meaning what was I afraid of?
What was holding you back, or maybe nothing? What was it that when you first started, did you feel like there was a chasm?
Yeah, I think sometimes we just get so comfortable. What I was doing was comfortable. I was working. I was making decent money. I had business loans. So that was one of the things I didn't have that freedom to just shut the doors. I had, business loans, I had employees, I had all these people I was responsible to. So I put those needs first and put my kind of dreams on hold, because it was like, well, what's going to happen to these 15 employees? What's going to happen? I have to pay off these business loans, and that you kind of get into the practical of it. So that was where I was, but the universe came out with a 2x4 and whacked me on the head in the tune of having to shut down my business. Eventually we ended up, long story short, ended up losing a lot of money, and I had to shut it down. So it kind of did for me what I was too afraid to do, because I didn't want to have that disruption of my life and have to deal with all the consequences of that. But in hindsight, it was a gift, and I'm actually very grateful for it. So sometimes you just got to take the junk and say, this is going to be messy and it's going to be a little painful at first, but what's on the other side is worth it.
So looking back, do you wish you'd just shut the business down when your heart told you to do that?
Yeah. And I could have probably sold it and, done things differently if we had that like time machine, it would have been a lot easier. But I also believe everything happens for a reason, and it's all perfect. And it teaches us what we need to know to go into the next thing more powerfully. So,
well, Dawn, I've got some more questions for you, but first I've got to thank the other sponsor of this episode. So this episode is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you sound amazing. Podfly does all the heavy lifting and the technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing cool people like Dawn. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know a lot of you do, you have to talk to the people at podfly.net. I'll tell you why. Because I've been in business a long time. I've had career stuff going on in one form or the other for close to 30 years, and I have never worked with a vendor who I can speak as highly of as Podfly Productions. They have been great to work with. All I do is I record these, and then I send them the raw files. They take care of the editing. They get the intro and the outro loaded up. They take care of stuff. They're always on top of telling me what's changing with iTunes and everything else. I think they are fantastic. I couldn't imagine doing this show with any other company as my production partner. So go to podfly.net/cool things and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. Hey, so Dawn, I call this show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. So I always love to ask the people who come on it, what is the coolest, newest, most exciting thing you're doing with your business right now?
Yeah, well, speaking of podcasts, which is where we met at the New Media Summit last year. And I'm getting ready to launch my own podcast. It's going to be coming out in just a few weeks, which I'm really excited about. Podcasting is definitely, as you know, it's huge. It's going to get bigger. There's something about audio and just being in people's ears when they're, driving or working out or cooking dinner or whatever it is. So Barenaked Radio is the name of my show. And I'm going to have, conscious leaders come and share their stories. But really like their authentic stories, not just the highlights reel, not just like the curated, what people want to see, but like the messy behind the scenes, the failures and the big lessons and the fears and all that juicy stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, and that's something that, people gloss over. It's so interesting in my business, in the speaking business. You talk to people and it's all, they blow flowers up people's butts about, what it was to be, oh, I did this and I did this. And it's like, no, you didn't. I actually saw one person put on a course, and he's famous. He had a best-selling book, and he's done all this great stuff. But he did a course at a conference on how to become a $40,000 a speech speaker. And so I went, and I used to know him. In fact, I'm one of the first people who ever hired him when he first wrote his first book, like, I don't know, God, more than 15 years ago. And, probably 16 years ago, I hired him 3 or 4 times. And one of the things he talked about was how he said, you never discount. You set your fee and you never discount. Because I never once discounted. Now, I didn't call him out in front of the audience of 100 people, but I went up to him afterwards and he remembered me. And I said, you just said you never discounted. And I go, I know for a fact that my firm that I worked for at the time would have never paid that fee. And he goes, yeah, but you were Fred's friend. And so that's how we worked it out was, I was going to be in town and Fred said, this guy needs a speaker for a luncheon. And I said, you said never. In fact, he might have said never, ever. You didn't talk about Fred's friend. And, he kind of backpedaled and hemmed and hawed. And I thought, this is the problem with all of these people who come out and give entrepreneurial advice and all these things is they either forget that they did these things, or they want to make their point so strong that they say never, ever, ever. And it's like, just talk about what it is. Whenever I'm interviewed on a show, people are always like, wow, I can't believe you talked about that screw up. And I'm like, I'm had a good year in 2017. I'm proud of it, but I did some dumb things. I've done, I've kicked myself in the teeth. I've been an idiot, many a times. But that's part of the journey. I couldn't have got to where I am if I hadn't been an idiot. So I think that's great. If you can really get people to, get barenaked, literally. I mean, figuratively, not
right.
Literally.
Well, it's a podcast,
they could be. Yeah, that's true. It's just audio. So, I think that's awesome because I think that's what people need to hear. So I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I mean, my business is better because of this show. I get referrals, people who listen to this, they work for companies and their company's having a team meeting and they're like, oh, hey boss, check this guy out. And I don't get hired every time, but I've picked up several gigs because people who listen to this show have, been my champions and things like that. So I think your podcast is a wonderful idea, but based on the idea of your show about like horrible mistakes and being raw, I'm going to throw it back at you, Dawn.
Sure.
Take away what you already told us about the one business. What's another what's the biggest screw up you've made as your storytelling, consulting, and coaching business?
Oh gosh. Besides waiting too long to do what I really want. Let me think, as a generalization, I think I'm all for hiring coaches and consultants. I do coaching and consulting myself. But one caveat, and this is for anyone that's listening, is only take what resonates with you. Even if you hire the best consultant or coach in the world, yes, take their advice, but only what resonates with you. Because sometimes if we get too into other people's 10 steps to blah, 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 you have to do A, B, and C, and D, and if it doesn't feel right, like you shouldn't be doing it. So I know when I was launching this business, there was a lot of that where I was working with some coaches and they were like, you have to do this. And you have to do a telesummit. And I didn't really want to do it. And I did it anyway. And it was kind of like half-assed, kind of thing, but that kind of stuff. So it's always like, take other people's advice and take the gems and what you were like, oh my God, yes, I have to, but then leave the rest. Like, what someone else's 10 steps to a million, you might only like 2 of those steps. So leave the other 8, that's just.
And you also have to be careful because a lot of these people, their 10 steps to a million is great, except for the fact that they're making $87 a month. So it's like, I've spent a lot of time. Legit? Yeah. I've been in a couple, I love my group coaching program because I've been in 2 or 3 of those. And I find that it's not only the person or the coach, it's the other people in the group is where I learn most of my stuff. So I love the online group coaching. If you can get involved with one where you like the synergy of it.
Yes.
So I like that because then it's not just the one person. You're getting a few points of whoever else is on the calls that you're on. But I spent some time really looking to have a business coach to help me. And I looked inside the speaking industry. I looked outside the speaking industry. I almost pulled the trigger 3 or 4 times. And then this year I went ahead and I hired somebody. And I think we have great synergy. We've only had one real meeting, but I'm making some changes to sort of not so much my brand, but sort of what I lead with. And, I'm liking what she's saying, but to your advice, that's exactly what I'm doing is I'm getting off the call and I'm saying, okay, this, I just can't do that. And so even if it's great advice, if it's not in connection with my soul, I'm going to do it half-assed. So I'm not doing anything half-assed, but I did find who I think is the perfect coach. And what she doesn't know, and hopefully she won't listen to this episode. If you're listening, tune it out for like the next 3 minutes. If she can really help me move the needle, she'll never need to work again, because I have like 15 other speakers who have said, we want to know how it goes. And they will all like throw, 5 figures at her for years if she can actually do it. Now, that pressure's on me, not on her, because I would never say anything bad. If I spent the money and I don't get anything out of it, I'm not going to say, oh, she sucked. But much like I go on and on about Podfly Productions, I mean, I've talked to, dozens of podcasters who are like, oh, they were a little more expensive. I hired Billy. And then they're like, I can't reach Billy. My show didn't go live. And it's like, well, because you just got Billy. I got a whole team. I have sent Podfly, I don't know how many clients, but the reason they sponsor my show is people sign up and use them for their podcast. But I talk about it not just on the show. I talk about it when I'm on airplanes. Anybody who says they want to do a podcast, I'm like, there's 100 options. Just go straight to Podfly. And I've had 3 or 4 people who didn't, who then changed over to them later. I got an email from somebody in December, and it was a video email. And she said one of the best things she ever did was hire Podfly. And she wouldn't have done it if I hadn't just gone on and on and on. And so that's the thing with this coach, is that I'm afraid I'll never be able to get on her calendar again if she does a good job, because I will just, you want to
keep her for yourself.
Well, no, it's not my style. I just go, when I have a vendor who's great, I can't shut up about it. And I've got a whole bunch of people already on deck saying, we want to know how it is to work with her. So anyway, hopefully she wasn't listening. I don't want her to have any pressure, but
no pressure.
but I definitely, so far, one meeting in, I'm thrilled to be working with her, and I realize the impetus of success is all on me. So we'll see what happens, but I like having someone there to do it. So I agree with your advice that get the coach, but only go so far with that.
Yeah. Don't half-ass anything. You got to put your whole ass into it.
That's exactly right.
That's the advice there.
So, Dawn, I think that entrepreneurs are observers. So I love to ask people who come on this show, who is it that you admire? When we could talk about Dawn and your storytelling business all day long, but so what? I want to know who you see out there where you think, oh my God, he or she is really doing something cool. They're just crushing it.
Oh gosh, I have so many people. I have to just pick one. That's hard. Who do I love right now? God, there's so many people. So one person I've been following for a while is Rachel Brathen. She goes by Yoga Girl on Instagram, and she's amassed over like 2 million Instagram followers. And really, what she does that I love so much, and how she's built this, empire business in the yoga world, which is not exactly easy to do, is she's so authentic, and she shares just from her heart vulnerably, whether it's she's had like a death with a friend that she was just opened herself up about, to, the behind the scenes of being a new mom and how that affects her relationship and just all that. So she's just like a breath of fresh air, how vulnerable and authentic she is. And it happens to be good for business too. And that's, one of the messages I always tell my clients who are afraid of really being who they really are in the world, is like, oh, well, people are going to judge me. And it's like, yeah, you might get some of that, but really people are going to love you when you let people see who you really are, and they see all parts of you, not just the sunshine, but the darkness as well. There's something so magnetic about that. So to watch someone like Rachel, who has built an empire in the yoga world, just by being authentic, it's very inspiring. And
I would imagine authenticity, based on what you do, is very, very key, right? I mean, based on what you teach, that's got to resonate heavily with you.
Absolutely. And a lot of times what I'll see is, like, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you'll meet someone like in real life, and and you just have a candid conversation, and you think, oh my gosh, they're great, they're awesome, they're so good, and they have this energy about them. And then you'll go like to their website or their social media, and there's like this very watered down version of them. And it's like, is that even the same person? And when I have that conversation with someone, it's like, well, I don't want to brag, or I don't want to, I don't want to put all that, 'cause people are going to think I'm weird, especially working with healers and people that are like a little bit more out there in the woo-woo world. But yeah, I get that a lot. So people are like afraid to be who they are. And you shouldn't be. It's actually very empowering and liberating to just be yourself. It's so much easier than pretending too. So
yeah, I learned a long time ago, not everybody's going to like me, even in the world
yeah.
that I work in, within associations and corporations. You get the little sheets back at the end of giving a speech. They put one in everybody's chair. They're digital. And what did you think of this speaker? And it's so interesting because most of them, of course, are, it was great. Oh, I learned so much. It was fun. It was high energy. And then somebody will be like, why did you hire him? He was a jerk. And I'm like, were they in the same audience with the other 400 people? And I just learned that that's okay. I'm not going to resonate with everybody. And if I try to resonate with everybody, then I'm going to be what you called watered down. So I just, it's even with this podcast, it's like, people send me advice all the time by email. I think you need to do this or you need to do that. And I'm like, I don't know. I just want it to be like we're sitting in a bar having a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were doing what everyone else told you to, it would not be as good, nearly as good. It would be like contrived and yeah. So, and I actually say good job when you have like people that don't like what you're doing. That means you're doing it right.
Yeah, you got to piss a few people. You got to piss a few people off once in a while.
If not, you're not trying hard enough.
That's exactly right. Hey, I do have one last question for you, and that is, I think that entrepreneurs want to do more than make money. I think they want to leave their mark in the world. So I love to ask people, what is it that you do to give back to the greater good? And I think that that's something that as entrepreneurs, we all should have some sort of a cause. We all should have something that we do. So what do you do?
Yeah. So I don't have like one big cause that I give to, but I'm sort of like the everyday cause person. So I'm one that's quick to give to a friend that has a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter for a new business idea. Or, if someone messages me and, they're just starting their business and they don't have the funds for a program and, I'll do scholarships, helping out young entrepreneurs and giving them some mentorship and free of charge and things like that. I just try to give back in small ways, like every day, just do at least a little something every day. And over time, it just feels good to be able to do that.
That's awesome. So Dawn, if somebody's listening to this show and they think, oh, this lady Dawn is great, I need some help with the storytelling part of my business, how do they find you? Where do people go?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. My company is called Blissed Communications. It's BLISSED communications.com. Or I'm all over social media. You can just look. I think I'm pretty much the only Dawn Gluskin out there. So look me up and let's connect online.
And Gluskin is just like it sounds. Gluskin, Gluskin.
There you go. That's it.
Awesome. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for sharing your story here on Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do.
Thanks so much. It's been fun hanging out with you today.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I always say it, if it wasn't for the audience, we wouldn't have a show. Come back in a couple days for another interview with somebody just as cool as Dawn. I know that sounds hard, but we'll find somebody. Hey, and if you want to get more involved in this community, you can find us on Twitter @Cool Podcast. We're on Facebook, Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. You can find me all over the place, TomSinger.com, THOMSINGER. I'm also on all the other social platforms. And then if you want to join the Potential Mastermind Project, now's the time to do it. We're kicking off the year, and that's potentialmastermind.com. So we're going to be back soon. Please continue to listen to these episodes. If you like them, jump over to iTunes, leave a review. That makes my day just so much better when there's a new review. But we're going to be back in a couple of days. But in the meantime, I'm going to challenge you. Go out there and have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at tomsinger.